Welcome to the Explainer. I am just so incredibly excited to guide you through today's focused exploration. Today we're unpacking an idea that touches literally every single one of us, every single day. It forms the absolute bedrock of how we move through this crazy, fast-paced, totally unpredictable world we live in. We're talking about resilience. But listen, we aren't just looking at this as some corporate buzzword you hear in an HR meeting. No, we are examining the actual architecture of it. Just think for a second about the sheer speed of change we deal with. Economic shifts, technological disruptions popping up out of nowhere, constant 24/7 connectivity. Thriving in that kind of environment, it requires way more than just a positive attitude or a smile. It demands a structured, psychological toolkit. We're going to look past the surface today and really dig into the deep cognitive habits, the frameworks for emotional regulation, and those structural mental pathways that actually allow people to absorb massive shocks and just keep moving forward. It's all about reverse engineering how we adapt.
Okay, let's dive into this. How resilient are you? Seriously, take a brief second and really think about that. And I don't mean how well you handle a bad traffic jam or a spilled cup of coffee on your shirt. I mean, when the ground radically shifts beneath your feet, what actually happens to your baseline? Imagine a scenario, maybe a massive project you spent 2 whole years spearheading gets abruptly canceled overnight just because of some sudden corporate structuring. Or maybe a sudden global market shock completely destabilizes your entire industry. When that level of acute, heavy stress hits, do your executive functions freeze up or do they immediately kick into problem-solving mode? We have to confront this stark, central question head-on. It demands that we look inward, to rigorously assess our own baseline capacity to process, handle, and ultimately metabolize heavy adversity before we even begin to look at the mechanics of improving that response.
To truly understand the answer to that question, we have to look closely at this concept of the architecture of personal resilience. And honestly, the immense metaphorical weight of that word, architecture, that is exactly where the magic happens. Resilience is so incredibly misunderstood. We often treat it like this mysterious genetic lottery ticket, like you either have it or you don't. But architecture implies a highly specific blueprint. It implies a structured foundation, careful planning, and intentional construction over a long period of time. So what are the actual materials used in this blueprint? Well, they're highly specific psychological mechanisms. We are talking about mastering cognitive reframing to actually alter how you perceive a threat in real time. We're talking about developing high-level emotional intelligence to regulate your amygdala when the panic starts to set in. And it involves constructing these robust social networks that literally act as load-bearing pillars when the pressure gets way too high. You are the structural engineer of your own capacity to bounce back.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the core of this framework rests on the deliberate and active process of developing these resilient skills. It's an active, deliberate, and ongoing pursuit. You don't just magically summon resilience out of thin air during a crisis. You construct it, habit by habit, long before the crisis ever arrives. Think about the practice of stress inoculation. This is where you intentionally expose yourself to small, manageable stressors every single day, like taking a freezing cold shower, or maybe tackling the absolute most intimidating task on your desk first thing in the morning. These microstressors act as daily reps for your nervous system. By actively practicing emotional regulation in these low-stakes environments, you are literally laying down the neural pathways required to stay calm when the stakes are infinitely higher. It completely transforms the whole concept from a passive hope into a tangible, actionable daily discipline that you fully control.
And as you can see, there is a distinct logical pipeline here. Building the skills directly prepares individuals for facing tough situations. This active construction fundamentally alters your readiness. Let me give you an example of how this pipeline works in the real world. Consider a commercial airline pilot. They spend hundreds of hours in a flight simulator, actively building skills by handling artificial, low-stakes emergencies like engine failures or severe turbulence. That deliberate building directly prepares them, so when they are suddenly flying a real plane and a flock of geese takes out an engine, they don't just panic. Their cognitive architecture simply takes over. They face the tough situation not with raw, unfiltered emotion, but with the specific pattern responses they constructed back in the simulator. The skills you acquire and practice today, no matter how small they seem, are the precise and literal tools that prepare you to execute flawlessly tomorrow.
So, the crucial point is that this preparation is the ultimate goal. The primary purpose of constructing this mental architecture isn't just to feel confident on a sunny day. No, its core vital function is to act as a deeply ingrained protective shield. It's your ultimate readiness tool. But here is the really fascinating psychological hurdle. Most of us are incredibly bad at proactive preparation. It's due to what behavioral economists call present bias. Basically, we tend to heavily overvalue immediate comfort and just ignore future risks entirely. We fundamentally struggle to put the roof on the house while the sun is shining, right? Because building a roof is hard work and the storm feels so far away. True resilience requires overcoming that cognitive blind spot. It demands that we do the hard, unglamorous work of reinforcing our emotional and cognitive structures right now, effectively overriding our biological urge to just be comfortable in the present moment. And this brilliantly illustrates how this foundational strength doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It acts as a massive umbrella over the two primary arenas of our human experience, our work and our personal lives. We often compartmentalize our stress, kind of tricking ourselves into thinking we need one set of coping strategies for the office and a completely different set for our home. But here's the thing, human biology simply doesn't work that way. Your endocrine system, the system that's pumping out all that cortisol and adrenaline, it absolutely does not know the difference between a high-stakes boardroom presentation and a difficult conversation in your living room. A perceived threat is a perceived threat. So you aren't building two totally distinct sets of coping mechanisms. You're constructing one central, incredibly robust, resilient core. And that core radiates out to stabilize and protect every single facet of your existence, no matter what environment you happen to be standing in.
Let's look at the professional sphere first. The workplace brings a unique and often relentless brand of tough situations. We're talking about insanely tight deadlines, massive industry disruptions, and really high-pressure stakes. Consider an executive stepping into a deeply toxic work environment, or maybe trying to navigate a massive corporate merger that threatens their entire division. Without a structured foundation, all that constant ambiguity leads directly to burnout. It's inevitable. But by utilizing cognitive reframing, which is one of those key materials we discussed earlier, that same professional can look at the chaotic merger not as an existential threat to their career, but as a complex puzzle to solve, or maybe an opportunity to demonstrate crisis leadership. The internal architecture they've built provides the structural integrity needed to not just survive a deeply stressful career challenge, but to stand firm, pivot effectively, and navigate all that chaos with genuine, grounded confidence.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our personal lives, because this architecture certainly isn't left at the office door when you clock out. The exact same psychological mechanisms you leverage in a high-stakes meeting are incredibly vital at home. In fact, our personal lives carry some of the heaviest, most unpredictable storms we will ever face. Imagine having to navigate the sudden, severe illness of a family member, or a massive, unexpected financial hurdle that fundamentally alters your entire 5-year plan. These aren't just abstract concepts, they are deeply human realities. When the winds blow fiercely through your personal world, it is that exact same structural foundation, your practiced emotional regulation, your ability to lean into your social network pillars, and your habit of breaking massive problems into manageable steps that keeps the house standing. The resilience you actively cultivate becomes the anchor that allows you to be present and steady for the people who need you the absolute most.
Which brings us full circle, right back to where we started. How resilient are you? After breaking down the actual architecture of this concept, after seeing that resilience is deliberately constructed through daily habits like stress inoculation and cognitive reframing, I want you to ask yourself that question one more time. What does your own internal blueprint look like right now? Are there cracks in your emotional regulation? Are your social pillars truly load-bearing? Listen, don't wait for a crisis to find out. Start laying down those neural pathways today. Embrace the microstressors, reframe your daily challenges, and intentionally build the strength that will serve as your ultimate protective shield in both your career and your living room. Take absolute ownership of your mental infrastructure. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and hey, go build something unbreakable.